Hey everyone, this is John from EastCoastArmory.com, and I'm here today with a new product announcement video for a number of new 1/6 scale detail components for not just the M26 Pershing tank family, but also for a large number of other US armored fighting vehicles as well. All the components in this video here are newly produced and are all 3D printed in a multitude of different materials, and all of the components that I mentioned are going to be found on the EastCoastArmory.com website, and the catalogs can be listed below in the video description. I also want to point out that all of the items that you see being brought to the table in this video were all custom made to order, and this is something that I frequently do. If anyone is working on a 1/6 scale vehicle that I currently do not have in my collection, i.e. an Armortech M26 Pershing, sadly, but if you are working on a vehicle like that and you are looking for a certain set of detail components and they're not listed on the ECA catalog, just reach out to me, because very often I can go ahead and tool up and design the components and produce them much along the lines like you will see here on the ones on the table. So with that all the way, let's go ahead and get this video started off. So right out of the gate, let's go ahead and start this video off strong. The biggest detail accessory set that I just announced a little while ago, and now it's finally in hand from the printer, are the Grillwork sections for the T26 E3 Pershing, but also these will work on standard M26 and the M26A1. All of the mentioned components here were specifically designed by request for an individual who is working on the Armortech T26 E3 Pershing kit, and the Grillwork on that model is just like what we typically see on Armortech models, where they do supply you with the details, but they are a little bit basic and leave some room for improvement. Well, I went ahead and tooled up the following components, and you can see them here on the table. All these components here are made from 3D printed components, and they are a 3D printed nylon. However, it is a different manufacturing process compared to the one that I typically mention in my other videos. The set will supply you with all of the components that you see here on the table, and all these components are used on one M26 Pershing. And they include both the top section of the grills and the lower section of the grills. Clearly, these are meant to be a direct replacement for the ones found on the Armortech kit, and in some locations you will actually recycle several of the mounting points for the Armortech kit. However, in other locations you are going to have to make some modifications to the model in order to get these components fitted in place. I will touch upon that momentarily, but before I do, let's go ahead and actually examine what the components look like up close. So I'm going to start from the rear and work my way up to the front of the vehicle, or which would be the vehicle if I had one in hand. But here you can see the grillwork that we have right here. A lot of research and development and reference went into making the following components so that they are as realistic as possible, and you will see that in terms of the grills on both the exterior as well as the interior detailing as well. The interior detailing is also found on the remainder of the grill work that's found on the table. So for the very lower portion of the grill, it's in this little section that we have right here. It does have the correct number of slats. Yes, I actually counted them. It's amazing what you'll do at 2 o'clock in the morning. I actually went ahead and counted them, and they are in the following angle, which again is true to form to the real vehicle. They are not just straight up and down slats and have a angle bend to them, or I should say an angle tilt to them. On the grill work, I should say on the hinge work, the geometry has been replicated as close as possible to make it look just like the real one. We have the support strut right over here. We also have the hatch stop right over here. All of the weld beads are integrally printed on, and the unit is ready to go out of the box. The units are also pre-drilled, as you can see. They are printed hollow, so no drilling is going to be required for the hinge. And the same is also true for the other little hinge that we have right here. This is actually for the handle, and the handle found on all of the grill work found on the M26 Pershing is nothing more than a cylinder that was drilled out and then just welded directly to the slats. All of these details are present on the ECA piece, and the piece is drilled out just like it is on the other sections. The set will contain a length of floor wire over here in order to bend it to shape so that you get the appropriate handles, and the handles will be fully functional. Because of the angled portion of the grill, you can see just how realistic this is, and it really does do a great job with emulating the actual unit. On the inside portion, you could see that there is a box frame around the section, which again is true to form to the real unit, and then we have the grill slats in the center. Also, on this portion over here, you will see that there is a distinctive cutout found in this area, and this was, again, lifted directly off of the real example I was studying. This is what locks into this section over here that I'll touch upon momentarily. But in addition to this area, you can also see the reinforcement strips that are found on the inside. There are 3 located on the bottom portions, and the top will have something similar, which you will see in a moment. They are a square stock, as they are on the actual units, and because everything is integrally printed, they are actually very strong. And having to have scratch built these on my M26 Pershing about 10 years ago, I gotta say just how much of a relief I wish these pieces would have been back when I was working on that project, because it would have saved me a bit of a headache, because I actually had to scratch build everything that you see here on that build. But anyway, enough with memory lane. So obviously it's a mirror image on the opposite side, and these are left and right hand specific, as you can see. And that's true for the exterior and interior detailing. And that brings us to the next section of the grill, which is this one here. It's basically a similar design as of the lower one, but just a little bit longer. It has the exact same type of detailing that was mentioned on the other ones, but in terms of the hinges, the weld beads, the reinforcement strap is also the handle mount. On the inside over here, you can see that it has more of these little support strips. And we also have that cutout present in this area as well. On top of that, the box frame is properly detailed on both units, and you'll notice on this section over here, there is an angle cut in the reverse direction on these 2 sides. Again, lifted directly off of a real example that I was studying. Same is true for the opposite version, which again is a mirror image. One thing I also want to point out is that with this type of manufacturing method, which by the way, in case anyone's wondering, I have no clue. These are outsourced to a manufacturer. So I just did the STL file. I have no idea what the actual process is of printing. The only thing I know is that I've been utilizing this vendor quite often lately, and I'm definitely going to be utilizing them for many other projects to come. Stay tuned for that. But with the camera brought in closer, you should see the texture. I should say it's not going to be possible to really see the texture just because of how fine everything is printed. And this piece honestly looks like it was injection molded plastic. That's how good the quality of prints these are. Also, on the hinges, you'll see that there is a washer found on either end, again acting as spacers, and these were lifted, you guessed it, from the real Pershing. So that's it for the rear grille. Let's move up to the upper grille sections, and these are basically a duplicate component, and there's 4 of them for the top portion of this vehicle. All of them are basically identical to one another, give or take a certain location of the hinge determining left and right. So they are left and right hand specific, but design-wise they're basically the same. So here we have the grille work here. Unlike the ones on the rear, these are in a straight line and are not canted in any angle or direction. And because of that, you'll get the following look that you see here. These are very similar to the type of grills you'll see on an M4A3 or an M4A2 Sherman. You know, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And the features on this are just like the other ones. We have the handle support, or I should say the handle mount. Only on these grills here, they are extended on a steel plate. The tube is welded to the plate, and the plate itself is welded to the grill in the following locations. Same is also true for the hinge work. If we look on the hinge work, you will also see some subtle geometry on several of the components. Namely, on this area over here, you'll see that where the hinge location is, it's actually wider compared to the channel that we have right here in the center. And again, this was off of the actual example. The unit does have its weld beads present in these locations right here. And you can see that once everything is painted, it's really going to give the model a nice detail kick. The unit also has the appropriate thickness and width of the grill work. A lot of people out there, when they see the grills on these American tanks, they just think like the way it is on a 135, which is a thin little piece of meshwork or something similar to that. However, they're actually more similar to the subway gratings that you see in New York City. If you've ever been to Manhattan, you'll know what I'm talking about. It's very similar with the manufacturing method as well. So we have this nice thick appearance that we have here. Again, true to form to the real vehicle. And in order to keep the units in place, we have these strips running across the top, but they're not strips. Another common misconception about these American tanks. On the real vehicle, these are actually weld beads, and there's just 4 of them that go from top to bottom, and the weld bead detailing has been carried over into the ECA component. Hopefully it comes out on camera, but I tried to make these as accurate as humanly possible. It's basically the same type of technique that I incorporated on my M4 A3 Sherman grills, which are also something that's found on the ECA catalog, but that's a topic for another video. On the inside over here, unlike the ones on the bottom, there are no reinforcement type fittings, as everything here is done to the top portions. Like I stated before, these are all left and right hand specific, and basically you can tell the difference with how the hinge is positioned. So you have this one over here. Note the hinge is flush on this area, while on this version here it's a mirror image. So that is something that the builder needs to pay attention to. Basically, this is the type of thing you will figure out when it comes time for installing these in place. If you're installing them and they're not fitting properly, that's because you have a mirror image type situation going. So just sort that out and the pieces should line up accordingly. On that note, this brings us to the hinge work. So we'll start with the smaller hinges that we have right here. The hinges here come on this little piece of sprue. 2 of them cracked off during shipping, which is no big deal. You have to snip them off anyway. But regardless, here's what the hinge looks like off of the sprue, and you'll see that it has a bunch of welds, and the welds are just like on the real vehicle, where they are built up on top of each other, and you get this cascading look. And again, it's very true to form to the actual unit. Just like with the other sections, they are integrally drilled out, or I should say printed hollow. I'm used to wrestling, guys. So these pieces all fit on the same exact locations, and as you can see, it is a very perfect and tight fit. No slop will be found on these components once fully assembled. As for securing the hinges to the tank itself, you'll notice that they have this specific shape to them, and this is because these sets here are designed to fit onto the Armortech M26 Pershing. With the way the Armortech kit is designed, their hinge is very similar to this, and the way it secures to the vehicle is that we have this tongue and groove system. There's a groove cut into the tank's armor, and the tongue piece of the hinge gets plugged into that, and then you secure it with a fastener. Now, you'll notice that the fastener location is not drilled out on this. This is something that the builder will have to do, and there may be some slight hand fitting that's required on the tongue or the groove on the tank in order to get the piece to fit in correctly. This is something that shouldn't take that much work, and just a little bit of filing here or there, and you should be good to go. In order to secure this in place, once you have the hinges properly laid out, you just basically take a pencil, you mark the location where the new hole is going to be, drill that out, and then you would secure this in place with the same exact countersunk fastener that's supplied with the kit. Once that is accomplished, you can even add a little drop of glue just for extra strength, and the piece is now installed to the vehicle. For the bottom section, this will actually require more modifications to be made to the model compared to the ones on the top. With the way the Armortech kit is designed, there are several sections in this rear section that need to be amputated, and this was just with the way Armortech designed the part. In order for the grills to be the correct shape and geometry, you are going to have to make these slight tweaks. There's a bulkhead that comes across on either side here on the back, and this needs to be amputated, very easily done with a Dremel with a cutting stone, as well as the top portion needs to be cut as well, and I believe same might be true for the bottom. This is something that is going to require some somewhat advanced skill sets, but if you are willing to go the extra mile, it is definitely going to be worth it in my opinion. And before anyone begins to panic, because I am talking about cutting bulkheads, the locations that I'm talking about serve absolutely no structural strength or structural purpose. They're basically there just to hold up the grill. So by omitting or deleting these components here, you're not sacrificing the strength on the vehicle, or at least from what I was able to tell from all the photographs that my customer sent me. But in order to secure them in place, you are going to need this piece that we have right here. And right now on this component, which looks like a giant eye, we also have the hinges. So starting with the hinges, again, just like with the other units, they are appropriately shaped. Hopefully it gets in focus. And in focus, you get to see the geometry that we have. And just like with the other hinges, these two are built up on a couple rows of weld bead. Those details are present on the part. As for fitting, well, give this the old college try, and it fits absolutely perfectly like a glove. In order to secure these in place, you will just have to mark the locations, drill out the locations on the hull, and then insert them in place with adhesives. For this large eye looking like piece, well, this is the actual hatch stop and prevents the hatch from overswinging into the vehicle. As I mentioned before, there are cutouts found in these areas right here on the two grills. Well, you basically kind of get an idea exactly how this system functions. When you close the hatch, it will rest on this area over here, thus holding it in place. Now, as for how this component gets fitted to the vehicle, well, you notice that the piece is a single printing, and this is done on purpose so that the alignment of the hatches, no other guesswork's going to have to be figured out. This piece gets fastened to the spine section of the ArmorTech plate via 3 fasteners. That's why we have these 3 holes over here. So the way you would fit this to the vehicles, you would first mount on the hatches, you would see exactly where everything lines up, mark the locations on the plate, drill them out, and then secure this to the inside portion of the plate via the fasteners. Once these are secured in place, the hatch assembly is completed. And that's all there really is to mention about the grills, and that is going to be a really tough act to follow, but the show must go on. So the next bit of equipment takes us to what we have here. Now, this is a relatively new addition to the ECA catalog. I tooled these up a few months ago, but this is the first time I actually got a chance to get them on camera. And these are US AFV armored fuel cover, or just filler cover caps. These protect the filler caps for fuel and the radiator fluid from any sort of damage from shrapnel or other sort of potential problems. And the ones that you see here are available in a plethora of different options found on the ECA catalog to cover the spectrum of the different types of Sherman tanks that are out there, from the M4A4 to the M4A3 to the standard M4. All 3 of those have a different number of filler caps found on the rear deck. I have a set for the M3 Lee and another set specifically for the M26 Pershing. Even amongst all of those sets, there are other options available, where some even have a hex bolt found in the center portion of the filler cap, as again, this is something that was frequently seen on several real examples. And on top of that, there are options that have, like this one over here, where it's just the filler cap detailing, or I should say the cover cap detailing, and then there are another version of the same set that have the filler caps that would be detailed that you would see underneath. So the units are designed to be fully functional, where you pull the pin, the piece will hinge open, and you will see the detailing below. Or if you just want to leave the detailing off, you get this set here, which is a little bit cheaper, but you are missing that detailing. So whichever is good for your budget or for your build, I have a set custom tailored for your needs. The sets all come with basically the same exact printed details, just the numbers change as well as the filler caps themselves. And the sets will come with a length of metal chain, which is not seen on the table right now. And the ones with the filler cap also come with the metal wire to give you that detailing as well. Regardless of the set, like I said before, they are all comprising of basically the exact same components here. So here you can see the cover cap itself. The cap has its complete interior and exterior detailing, although it's not really going to be that easy to see on camera since the base is here. And by the way, this is actually going out to a customer. As soon as I'm done filming this thing gets bagged with the parts and whew, off it goes to the customer who ordered it. But you get to see the under sections here where the inside is scalloped out, and you can also see the little drainage holes found on each side. This is again true to form to the real unit. For the actual pieces themselves, for reference, I utilize the real M4A3 Sherman tank pictures that I took myself a couple years ago when I had the opportunity to see a real M4A3, and I did a thorough walk around of that build, or I should say of that vehicle, and that was able to assist me with the details that we have here. So in addition to the cap itself, note it has the interior and exterior geometry. We even have little cutouts right over here, which would be milled on the real ones. And the other parts consist of 2 hatches, or I should say 2 hinges for each, and the hinges are welded with their weld bead detailing present. So no sculpting needs to be done by the builder. They, of course, are all printed hollow, so the pins will fit in place. We have the hinge pin right over here, but you could easily swap that out for a metal pin if desired. And we have the actual functional lock pin right here. The lock pin has all the appropriate geometry to it. And in addition to the lock pin, you'll see these small little eyelets right over here, and these eyelets are used for the chain retention system. As I mentioned before, there is a length of chain that's supplied, and each one of these filler caps has a length of chain which connect to, and this is so that you don't lose the pin in real life. So when you pull the pin out, you flip this thing open, you're never going to lose it, which is a pretty clever idea. The eyelets themselves do have their weld bead detailing integrally printed on. As I mentioned before, there is a set available for the M3 Lee, and that set is basically the same, but the difference is with the hinge. With the way it is on that vehicle, they're not welded to the top deck, but they are riveted, and there's a different geometry to the hinge, and all that has been taken care of on the M3 Lee set. And again, all these are mentioned, are found on the ECA catalogs. Moving our way to the next bit of equipment takes us to what you see on the table, and this is a brand spanking new addition to the ECA catalog, specifically the ECA Pershing catalog. What you see here are the little lock levers and handles for the side bins that are found on the M26 family. The M26, of course, are very distinctive with having, or I should say being the first vehicle to incorporate the side storage bin system, and the design that we have here basically stayed the same up until even on the M1. They utilize little handles very similar to this, but less number, of course. The set that we have here is, of course, all 3D printed, and it actually replaces and retires a legacy set that was on the catalog for about 10 years now. In the past, I had basically the same exact components, but they were made out of cast resin. That mold has completely worn out, so rather than trying to make a new one, I simply put that set out to pasture, and I hit the drawing board creating the set that we have here. The set here is far superior compared to the old resin one. The resin one was great for its time, but, you know, with modern technology, it definitely can use a bit of a facelift. And the one you see here are taken from, again, photographs of some real examples of these units found on the real vehicle. And the set contains of all the parts that we have here, and there are enough components to outfit one M26 or an M26A1 pattern of vehicle. Of course, this is also true for the T26E3, but, you know, now we're arguing semantics. The sets, by the way, are going to be offered for different vehicles within the next weeks or so, where I'm going to have a set for the M46 and M47, the M60, and also make one for the M1 because, you know, frankly, why not? It's the same design. The only difference is the number that are supplied. So the set contains both the handle and also the padlock receptacle right over here. With the way these bins lids are, or I should say these latches are designed, is that the latch, you know, is in place on top of the bin, and we have this little section here that's welded onto the top portion. This serves two functions. It prevents the piece from overturning, and it also allows the operator to put a padlock, locking the thing in place if so desired. You can see that with the little holes found right there on the side. Hopefully it comes out on camera. The piece has all the appropriate geometry with the bottom base. Also with the way the piece has a taper on this portion over here, and it's also rounded on the bottom again, exactly like the real unit. On the overstop section, you will see that the piece does have its weld beads integrally printed on, so again, no sculpting is required by the builder. And the pieces, by the way, are in a left and right hand specific format, so you have the mirror image type look, which is exactly what you would see on the real M26 family. The next bit of equipment is something that I've been wanting to announce now for a while, and that is the newest generation of the US AFV external periscope. And this is something that traces its lineage all the way back to when I first founded ECA, because actually it's one of the first components that I originally produced for a long period of time. So this here is just the latest generation of that. The AFV brush guard is a ubiquitous piece of equipment found on American tanks from World War II and beyond, and originally these were made from brass, and I used to solder them together and bend them to shape individually every single time. So if you have one of the older ones, yeah, I actually used to hand make those. So in the recent years that followed, when I switched over to 3D print, these were one of the first things I switched over from the handmade ones to the print ones. And they are still found on the catalog and made in a multitude of different materials, from standard nylon print to HD 3D print to metal 3D print. However, I always wanted to make the set that we have here. Now, this is again the second generation of periscope. I've also produced the periscopes for a while, originally in cast resin. Then I switched over to print, where I have them both open and closed, and those ones actually have the brush guard integrally printed on. And those ones were actually pretty popular. However, one feedback that I received from some customers, and it's also one that I've been wanting to change myself, was they like the all-encompassing feature that the other one does have, and those are still in production. But for people who have radio control tanks, the HD material made on those units, specifically on the periscope brush guard, can be a bit frail, and for an RC tank with the rigors that has to go through, perhaps that medium is not really the best suited for that. So if that's you, I heard you and I took care of you, because that's the set we have here, and specifically intended for individuals with that type of a usage. So this is going to consist of two components. First, we have here a periscope. The periscope itself is the same exact CAD file as the previous one. However, the scale has been changed and it's actually slightly larger compared to the other one. Again, due to feedback coming in from my customers. So if you are an ECA customer, you know, and you have some suggestions, I'm always open to them. And here you can see what the newest component is. Detail-wise, like I stated before, it's identical. And by the way, these are sold in both open and closed states, so you have the option to have both on your model. They have the stamped sheet metal periscope cover lid itself. We have the hinge detailing. We even have the small spring detailing integrally printed on. On the face portion, you can see the periscope prism itself with its little rivets. And the stamped sheet metal plate is hollow on the inside, just like it is on the actual unit. On the bottom base plate here, it is cut into two sections, as is on the actual unit. And again, all this is the same. You'll notice that these are always printed in HD material, because with the way the prism is, by having the piece in HD, one, it gives you much superior surface quality, but the other thing is that because it's HD, you can actually paint around the prism area, and it'll lead for some very realistic results. Then this takes us to the brush guard. Because the unit was scaled up, the brush guard was scaled up as well. Now, the ones on the ECA catalog that are integrally printed on as one piece, these two have been adjusted and are now the same exact size as these ones here. The brush guard is still made from 3D print, but now it's a brass 3D print. That's right, brass 3D print. Okay, this is the good stuff here. And the brush guard is, again, the exact same CAD file used to create the other ones, but just enlarged. So we have the same geometry, the same type of shape, and also, well, that's the same thing as geometry, but regardless, we also have here the small micro fasteners that would be on the real one that are used to secure this in place. And on the real unit, you would have these 4 fasteners located in these 4 locations, and that would actually bolt this piece to the periscope. On the ECA piece, you just simply plug it in, and you'll see that it just plugs directly in with absolutely no hand fitting being required. And this piece here is now far more durable and robust for RC running compared to just the original HD 3D print one. However, these ones are going to cost more due to the material that they are made in, and that's why I'm keeping the other ones on the market. If you are looking for just a static display model and the piece is not really going to get snagged or anything along those lines, perhaps you might want to look at the other version that I referenced. But if you have an RC model and you're looking to acquire something that's a little bit more robust, this set here would definitely be the best option for you. So another bit of equipment that's a relatively new addition to the ECA catalog, but is one that I never got a chance to get on camera yet, is the set that you see here. This here is the M4 Sherman family side view mirror set. As I often mention in my videos, both small and large, the Sherman family did have the ability to mount side view mirrors on when the tank is driving in its transport type configuration. But the mirrors would be really easily damaged in battle, so generally they were dismounted. However, you can add this detailing to your build. So the set that we have here, again, it's all 3D printed with the exception of these over here that I'll touch upon momentarily, but here you get to see the set. It's all made out of the same nylon material, and it consists of everything you need to outfit one Sherman tank, as well as a couple extras. So here we have the 2 mirror mounts themselves. They have the right geometry to them, and they even have the little mounting bracket with its detailing, or I should say its fastener detailing present. We have here the actual stems themselves, the mounts that connect the stems to the bracket right over here, and the brackets themselves are welded with their weld bead detail. So again, this is another bit of work that doesn't need to be exhibited by the builder. The units are designed to be fully pivotable, so you can position it in any which way you desire. What's also supplied with a set that's not seen on the table at this time are the metal bits of fasteners that are included in order to pin everything together. What is, though, found on the table is with the mirrors. The mirrors are obviously not 3D printed. They can't 3D print those. It'd be impressive if they can, but that's not the case, or at least not now anyhow. And the set contains 2 of them. These are made from plastic and will simply just drop into place into their appropriate locations, and everything is scaled properly to fit. The mirrors do have a protective film on them, so if you get one of these sets and you realize, hey, why does it look all cloudy? That's because there is a little film of protective plastic found on the mirror just to protect it. Once you install everything in place and you're ready to go, you just peel that off and you're done. The next bit of equipment is another component that was requested by customers to be made in metal, and that is the 50 cal travel rack. On the rear portion of the Sherman and the Pershing, we have this design that we have here, and it's basically just a clamp that secures the receiver of the M2 HB in place when fitted in transport mode. For a while, I've produced this component in HD 3D print, and it's still available in that material if desired. However, again, for radio control use, the HD material, although visually it looks great, it's really a bit frail, and again, it could be, better done in a different material. So, with feedback from the customers, I went ahead and opened the mail. So, here's the same exact component, literally the exact same everything. The only difference is the material. Rather than being made out of HD 3D print, it's now printed in brass. And the part looks absolutely excellent. It's all designed to be functional with the hinge mechanism that we have here, and also with the locking mechanism. Although there is a little spring type clamp, it's just, it just pivots out of the way, but it does give you the look and feel of the real unit. Of course, it does have its well-be detailing integrally printed on, as it did originally. And you can see it found on these two locations right here and here. This will be far more capable at dealing with the rigors of radio control use. The next detail component is another request that I've had from customers for a material change. And again, I'm here to answer the mail. So the component is the 50 cal travel lock. This is a very iconic bit of detailing found on almost all American tanks. And this was another detail component that's been on the ECA catalog now basically forever. However, in recent years, I went ahead and switched the material from the original cast resin ones to 3D print. The sets are still found on the ECA catalog, made in HD 3D printed material, and are designed to be fully functional. However, there were some feedback from other customers saying that for RC use, they would prefer if the piece was made out of metal. Well, here you go. Here's the component now made out of brass 3D print. Unfortunately, the one that you see on the table here is not 1/6 scale. There was kind of a mistake made by the printer, but alas, I have a couple units on hand. But the piece, even though this one here is underscaled, the component itself, the CAD file, is exactly the same, and I currently have new ones being printed right now as we speak, but to the proper size. Regardless, here you see the component right here on hand, so it's a good preview on exactly what the piece is going to look like. So the set is identical in the CAD file as the other ones, so we have the same features. We have the working pivoting section. We even have the locking mechanism, which is right over there. We have the securing pin, and the piece does have its well beads integrally printed on. The rabbit ear section is right over there. It's a bit on the softer side, which is good. So on the properly scaled one, you can actually bend these out of the way and actually fit the barrel of the M2 in place, or that's the idea. And so that's something that remains to be seen, but you can see these small little dome-headed rivets found on the component. And again, everything visually is as it should be. As for this one here, I have about 2 or 3 of them on hand, and these are not going to be a catalog item. Obviously, they are way under scale to be 1/6. If I was to take a guess, I'd say they're anywhere between 110 or 1/8. So, screw it. I'll just go ahead and throw it out there to the community. If anyone has a 110 scale Sherman tank out there and they want to add this bit of detailing, I have 3 of them on stock right now, ready to go. Hit me up at the email address listed below, info@eastcoastarmory.com if you're interested in this, and I'll go ahead and sell it for $50 US shipping included. So, right there, if you're interested in one of these pieces and got $50 burning a hole in your wallet, hit me up. And just for, full disclosure, here I have a ruler right here, so you get to see the size if it works for you. So I'm going to go ahead and line this guy right up right there, and there's the size right there for all to see. Again, $50 US, US shipping included. Anyone's overseas, hit me up and I could easily recalculate that if desired. And for the metric inclined individual, there you go, right there. That should tell you the size. As you can see, I am a very busy person behind the scenes, designing all this new stuff, as well as also working on the other projects that I typically spend my time with, being commission builds for customers, personal builds for myself, as well as just doing my typical model reviews and my YouTube videos. So, you know, my day is pretty well packed. All the components that you see here are all spoken for, with the exception of the travel locks because they're the wrong size, but all the other components are going to be bagged up, boxed up, and shipped to the appropriate customers once I'm done filming this video. However, if you're watching this, that doesn't mean that you too cannot order any of these components, because they are all listed on the ECA catalog. And by all, I mean all of them in 1/6 scale. The 1/10-ish scale components, those are not catalog items. Again, those are on a first come, first served basis. But everything else are listed on the ECA catalog right now as I speak. And they can be found on the links found in the video description listed below. But enough of that. That basically wraps up this new product announcement video for the various new ECA 1/6 scale detail components that you've seen here. If you like this video, be sure to subscribe to this channel, where it's a great way to keep up to date on new posted content, being 1/6 scale or other scale new product announcement videos, as well as my usual content being 1/6 scale project update videos and smaller scale model showcase videos when they get posted. Another way to keep in loop of new posted content is by liking us on Facebook. There I have more photographs of everything that I just mentioned, as well as also the new preview stuff that is about to be released. And don't, of course, forget to swing by eastcoastarmory.com for more 1/6 and 1/16 scale builds and detail components. Thanks again. I'll be seeing you all again on the next one. Till then.